And the US President Donald Trump is wrapping up his tour of the Gulf states with the final stop in the United Arab Emirates to confirm billions of dollars worth of investment deals. Trump met with Emirati President Sheikh Mohamed bin Zayed Al Nahyan in Abu Dhabi and announced deals worth more than $200 billion. The pair also agreed to further cooperation in artificial intelligence. The visit came as US Democrats try to block arms sales to the UAE over its alleged involvement in Sudan's civil war. Earlier in the week, Trump visited Saudi Arabia, where he made what he called the biggest defence sales agreement in history, a military deal worth $142 billion.
Donald Trump signing deals. The $142 billion defence agreement with Saudi Arabia is a big one, but it only represents commitments over a multi-year period. In 2017, the first Trump administration signed a $110 billion deal with the Saudis, but many of its provisions were later blocked by Congress or the Biden administration. The White House says the agreement covers 5 categories: Air Force and space capabilities, air and missile defense, naval forces and coastal security, land forces and border security, and information systems upgrades. Trump also signed an agreement with Qatar to buy further military equipment, and another is pending with the United Arab Emirates. Great news for U.S. military contractors, but how will it affect the region?
There's something in U.S. policy, foreign policy, which is called the qualitative military edge, which is a logic according to which America would never deliver any more sophisticated weapons to other countries in the Middle East than to Israel, to make sure Israel has always the upper hand. We see that the Gulf states, of course, not acting hostile to Israel, and even Saudi Arabia has indicated it is willing to make peace with Israel if the Israeli government changes its behavior on Palestine. But let's not forget an increase of arms, let's say, military supplies to the Gulf states could also one day turn against Israel, and that is something the Israeli strategists certainly have in mind.
It's not clear yet whether Saudi Arabia will be able to buy Lockheed F-35 jets. Previously, Israel has been the only Middle East country allowed to buy the fighter bomber planes. Trump is not scheduled to visit Israel on this trip, nor has he focused heavily on the Saudis and Israelis' common foe, Iran. The question is whether Trump's hunger for business deals is now triumphing over long-term strategic concerns.
All right, let's get more on this with our Middle East analyst, Shani Rosanes. Shani, what are the main takeaways from Trump's Gulf visit?
Well, he's trying to reshuffle the region. He's trying to, he's very happy to focus on the rich countries of the Middle East rather than the poorer ones that are also conflict-ridden and need more of American support, and a lot of American foreign aid money go there. If we talk at Jordan or Egypt, for example, we're not even at the table this time. Of course, he enjoys to go to the very glitzy, rich part of the Gulf and bring back a lot of money. He needs to deliver to the American public back home, and this is something that he can deliver, unlike on the political front when it comes to solving some of the conflicts that are connected to the Middle East. Of course, the Gaza war would be the main of them. But we also need to keep in mind the separation maybe that we're doing between maybe deals or economical vision and political strategic goals. It might be somewhat artificial, because when Trump is so close with those countries that have so much clout, so much money, so much influence in the region, of course, this also will be part of the political strategy into where this whole region is going. The Iranians, hearing about the prosperity, this new region, this, all about money and success and deals, of course, they might want a cut of that, and it could be looking better for them to want to have the sanctions withdrawn and then make concessions into the deal. But it also means that Trump is not too eager to start any attacks on Iran, for example. This is one aspect of it. We've also even seen him hug very close to Syrian new president, who has had a jihadist background and is considered to be, even in Washington, to be a very polarizing figure. So Trump is trying to hope that this economic vision that he's bringing to the Middle East also has other maybe added benefits on the long term to the American strategy.
Now, Trump did not visit Israel during this trip.
Correct.
Do you see this as Trump deliberately distancing himself from the Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, or is it simply that the focus of this trip was to make business deals?
A bit of both, I would assume. He doesn't have concrete deliverables to have. He did want to have the release of the last American-Israeli hostage come to light, and this did happen at the eve of his visit. But other than that, he doesn't really have much to bring when it comes to this terrible war in Gaza that is ongoing. And this is where the daylight is between the Israeli government and the Trump administration. And no side would want to publicly discuss it too much, but it's quite clear. Trump, as we've also seen in the street, is driven by, the businessman who wants to bring deals, who wants to bring success, prosperity. Israel, the Gaza war, they're dragging down the Trump vision and the whole region, the way the Americans are seeing that, and the need for getting into the details of how to solve that problem with the Israeli administration, with the Israeli government that is very much sticking to the right, and it's very much sticking to the same position, very little room for wiggle with the Israelis, the Americans feel, when trying to get some new creative ideas to restart negotiations with Hamas. And that puts a great tension between these two usually very strong allies.
There was hope, wasn't there, that Trump's trip might bring about a deal to bring all of the hostages home to stop the war in Gaza. That obviously didn't happen. So where does that leave the Palestinian people now?
Well, that's a great question, Anya. And this is the tragedy of it all, is that this terrible war, who has taken the life of over 53,000 Palestinians so far, is now being reduced to one single issue, it seems almost. This is the hostages. The fate of 2.2 million Palestinians is hanging, very much hand in hand with the fate of those 58 Israeli hostages, many of them believed not to be alive. So, and this is where the focus of the American administration is, bringing back those hostages, bringing a deal. And the idea is that would be the key to unlock the whole conflict. But it means that a lot of issues connecting to the reconstruction of Gaza, or what would be the reality on the ground when it comes to humanitarian aid, it is so direly needed in Gaza. And further on with development, that's still left behind. If we're going back to the top of our conversation, it could be that the strong alignment with the Saudis and the Gulf countries would be beneficial into the long-term plans of where Gaza is heading. But since Trump is very hesitant to going all in with his conflict with the Israeli government against their goals in Gaza, which seems to be to go ahead, Israel have said before the trip, it will soon resume its attack on Gaza, trying to take over all of the Gaza Strip. If this is what's happening, we don't see the American administration having too much appetite to stop Israel. And at the same time, it means that there's no viable solution, unfortunately, to this tragedy.
Middle East analyst Shani Razanis. Shani, thank you so much.
You're welcome, Anya.